Finally, I want to look over a couple of exercises or literal things that you can do instead of just things to understand that you can do to develop humility. And so the first one is going to be what I call what Marcus Aurelius calls the debts and lessons meditation. And essentially what this is you create a document or you write out a list of the people who you admire for some reason. And you write out what you learn from them, what it is that you admire about them. And this does a lot of things. First off, it makes you more thankful for them, and it makes you more grateful for the people in your life. And so being grateful, first off, for the people in your life, it internally makes you just feel better on a daily basis because you're more conscious of the things that you're, in a sense, lucky to have, and you're appreciative of that. Then it also is going to help better your relationship with them because you're going to be, in being more grateful for these people being in your life, that's going to be reflected in the way that you treat them, and that's just going to better your friendships and relationships and the way that you interact with these people. Then you're also going to be able to identify allies or people who can compensate for your flaws in some ways. You'll be able to recognize the things that you value and possibly bring to surface those genuine values that you aren't necessarily consciously aware of. You'll be able to recognize embodiments of ways that you want to live your life. So we've talked about how first we act, then we represent, and then we articulate. And just articulating how to act out certain values is difficult. But if you can visually see or interact with an embodiment of a certain value, then they can represent that value and you can observe them, and over time, from kind of learning from them and seeing them act out that value, or seeing them represent that value by them acting it out, you can abstract an articulate understanding of that value that you admire in them and that you're trying to adopt. Next is the shared nature reflection, which is basically when you observe somebody do something that you think is stupid or whatever else, but generally stupid in all the ways that people can be stupid. Instead of thinking, well, they're stupid, you use that as a indication of something that you probably did that was stupid, and you reflect on that. And so Confucius has a quote that goes something along the lines of, he was walking with two of his friends, and in one of them he learned something from them, as we did in the debts and reflections, or the debts and lessons reflection. So one of them he learned something from them, and the other one he recognized a flaw, and he didn't correct this flaw in the other person, he corrected that flaw in himself. So if you ever find yourself meditating on, maybe not meditating, but thinking about the flaws of other people, it's important to look at those flaws and direct them inward and try and search for either do they currently exist within you, are you acting that flaw out in your life right now, or at least has it existed within you at some point in the past, and the odds are probably yes. And so look at that action which represents that flaw and think, well, maybe I'm not perfect either, and you can build a bit of empathy for them, and that's going to bring about a bit of humility. Finally, you can go through and study the greats. So getting a good grasp of history, I think, is very humbling, because first off, you start to recognize your own smallness, if you will. You start to see much more of the grand journey of humanity. You start to recognize the meaninglessness of greatness, and thus become more connected and understanding of the meaningfulness of valuable experiences. You start to see how all of these people who once existed and once did all of these things are now dead and gone, and you start to recognize that soon you will be too. And so the way that other people perceive you, or the things that you do, don't really make a huge difference in the long run. And I think at first it's a little bit daunting, because we think, wow, like, it makes life feel kind of meaningless, but then we shift our meaning from desiring and pursuing these grand things to appreciating the small things in our life, and not needing all that pride makes us desire in order to be fulfilled. Finally, it can be useful after any accomplishment or any time where your self-image is starting to inflate, to think back and recognize the role that luck may have played in your accomplishment, or in your achievement, or in your progress, or whatever. If your self-image is inflating, you don't have to worry about that too much, but as soon as your self-image is inflating, you're likely not aware of the role that luck played. Even Alexander the Great was a very lucky man. I heard a story recently where he was in battle, and one dude came up and stabbed his head, but hit his helmet, and it chipped a part of his helmet off, and then he killed that guy. And just as Alexander the Great was killing one dude, another guy came up on horseback and was about to lob his head off, and like moments before this guy on horseback lobs Alexander's head off, one of Alexander's friends comes up and chops the dude's arm off, and then kills that guy. And I mean, Alexander was an arm's angle away from being toast and never becoming Alexander the Great. So even the most historically magnificent individuals required a bit of luck to get him there. So there are two takeaways from that. The first is that it's okay to admit the role that luck played in your path towards success. And another is to recognize that achieving greatness or some historical significance isn't necessarily a worthwhile goal, because ultimately it's something far outside of your control, because even the most prominent figures in history required a good deal of luck in order to get there.